2023 Baltimore Half Marathon. Let's get into some logistics before we dive into some course specifics. As always, if you like what you see, please like, subscribe, and share. If you need any coaching advice or just suggestions, please reach out to me. Contact is in the link down below. And if there's anything else, please let me know. So 2023's edition of the Baltimore Half brings about a couple of, not changes, but some things that you definitely need to know for success. Start time is Saturday, October 14th at 9:45 for the half. Start line is Light Street and Pratt Street, with the finish line pretty much identical to the start, which is really, really cool for logistical purposes. Race limit is 10,000 people, so there's going to be a lot of people here for this half marathon. Scrolling over on the first landing page of the website, there are some quick little facts for everyone, and there are some pretty cool things at this half. So the minimum age is 14 years old, and you have 5 hours to complete the 13-mile race. There are a couple of cool amenities there. Course amenities include baggage check, mile marker signs, clock, volunteer staff, and aid stations, along with some porta-johns mixed in. They say they will have at least 2 at every aid station, so keep that in mind. If it is close to the end, you might just want to push through depending on how many there are. You might end up costing yourself a lot of time if there are not a lot of porta-johns at the aid station, so that is a personal choice that you're going to have to cross later on, and we'll talk about more of that later. This is the course quick overview. Again, this is the start right here, and you loop back around. You go around the lake up top, and then you go back. Finish line is right here. Again, very, very close to the start line. This is our course profile, which we will be diving into later, and they talk about the wave starts over here. There are 5 different corrals. They are dictated by your bib number, which is provided to you. Packet pickup is the day beforehand, and you are not going to be allowed to check your pack or check in for packet pickup day of the race. So you have to do it day before. There is a couple of options there, and we can dive into the first thing with that health and fitness expo there. They have a host of options for you. These pictures will give you some insight as to what to expect there. There's going to be some pretty cool things there. Make sure you take the time to peruse there and have good fun there. It is from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., so a good chunk of the day to check it out and make sure you're there. Again, make sure you get there on time and you are checking in the day before. This is a map of some of the parking areas right here. Lots F, G, and H, as dictated in this area here, are all free parking, and they specifically call out Lot H for free parking during the expo, and it's 0.7 miles away, so a good opportunity to stretch your legs if you are traveling to the race site on that Friday morning. There's also shuttles provided from Lot H. I said it's going to be about a 15-minute bus ride each way, and they'll be located on the curbside islands between lots G and H. Shuttle times are from 10:30 to 8:30 on Friday. They also list some cool info, vendor goodie bags, things like that, which you can read at your own time. Tracking at this race is going to be downloadable from an app. For the half marathon, tracking is only going to be available at the start, 7 mile, and finish. You can get a good gauge on what your athlete is doing if you're tracking them. You can get a sense of when they started, and all runners, your time will officially start when you cross the start line. So just because the gun goes off and you're back in another corral doesn't mean the time for you is going to start. Your time starts when you cross the start line and stops when you cross the finish line because of the bib that you are wearing and hopefully have picked up the day before. So again, checked out that tracking. It's a good little thing over there, and if you do have an athlete racing, it is worth checking out here. This is the facts page. The first thing that is very interesting is if you have not received a confirmation email, make sure you reach out to customer service at CorriganSports.com. That is an important email to keep in mind if this does not happen, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So just go ahead and make sure you have that email there so you have the ability to reach out to them. There's the ability to virtually run at this race, but if you're not doing that, then you are arriving on the day before, picking up your packet, which I keep saying. So, where do you park for the expo and packet pickup? The Maryland Stadium Authority offers lots F and G for free parking during the expo, and there's a courtesy shuttle from lots F and G, and it's about a 15-minute bus ride. Can you have a friend and family member pick up your packet for me? Yes, if you are participating live and unable to attend the expo hours. Make sure you reach out to the race organizers just in case something has changed or they require you to send in something else. Can you have your bib mailed to you? Yes, you can for a $25 fee, and race questions right over here. Half marathon start line, Pratt and Light Streets. Start time 9:45 a.m. Where do you park on race day? The stadium parking lot's under 1 mile from the finish area. From the middle of lots B and C. Depending on your specific parking space, your walking route distance will vary. On race day, free parking is available in stadium lots A, B, C, D, F, G, H, J, and N. Additional paid lots are available throughout the city. There is also free walking maps right here. Some of these links are not blued out like a typical hyperlink is. So there are some clickable areas in the facts page which you should check out. Again, as I'm hovering over them, they do change some colors, but just wanted to make sure you are aware of all of that. If you wanted to check out road closures, you can also see that if you are a spectator. There's also the rail trail, the metro. It is available for you. I don't know if it's free or not, but again, that is worth checking out. For the Pacers for the half marathon, there are none. Those are for the marathon only, and there is going to be a bag check at this race. Runners are required to place belongings in the clear bags given out at the expo with no oversized bags or luggage accepted. All bags are subject to search, so arrive early if you plan to check a bag due to increased security. Bag check is open from 6:30 to 1 p.m. After 1:30 p.m., all unclaimed bags will be relocated to the information tent. So if you are a late finisher or get injured or something happens, that is where your bag will be after 1:30, and likely the movement of all of those bags is going to create a bit of a delay, so don't be surprised if the bags are in transition or transitioning from one spot to the other. So for the half marathon and 5K runners, bag check tent will be available behind the visitor center near the start line. What are you permitted to bring on race day? A list of the prohibited items is available here. Again, that hyperlink is not blue or a different color. It's kind of hidden, but it is available there. Bathrooms located, and this is what we talked about earlier. There will be at least 2 porta-johns at every water stop, which means that some are not going to be super stocked with bathrooms. So if you find yourself in an issue, you're going to have to weigh the pros and the cons of skipping that area. The wait times might be a little aggressive. So headphones is the next big thing. The use of personal music devices is permitted, which is kind of cool there. So another cool thing that this race has to offer. So this is a map of the parking areas for race day, and then the start line, which is right up here. And again, it's not a super far distance. Again, it is a great opportunity for you to stretch your legs on race day, and allows you to kind of open yourself up a little bit just to kind of get moving. That is the course here, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. There is chip timing, which is on your bib, so do not worry about that. On-course aid stations, water, Gatorade, miles 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a half, 9, 12, or 9, 11, and 12. So they are pretty plentiful for the water and Gatorade out on course. Good thing it is Gatorade Endurance Formula out there, and we'll talk about some nutritional aspects to that in a second here. Goos are only available at mile 7.5, so that halfway point on your race. So if I were you, I would plan on bringing some of your pre nutrition, using that beforehand, because if you wait until mile 7.5, your race is likely not going to go the way you want it to go. Snacks such as chips, bananas, miles 7.5 and 11, with the medical available at miles 3, 7.5, and 11 right before the finish. And there also is a awards area, the awards categories listed at the bottom of this page here. They are in 5 age band all the way up to 70 and over. That is available for the guys and the girls. A couple of exceptions are the 16 and under and the 17 to 19 age groups for both men and women. Virtual participants are not eligible for awards because they are running virtually. So let's dive into the nitty-gritty of this race. This is our course elevation profile, mapping it out on some of my stuff that I like to do. You can see here it is pretty similar. Pretty similar. We have about 523 feet of elevation gain on this course, and I'm going to go on this section for a second so we can highlight some specific areas and things you need to know. First area, number 1, 2, and then this section, which is going to be the bread and butter of the race. Section number 4 is going to be here, and then section number 5 is going to be on the back end. So let's talk about these sections and mix them in. First section right through here, this one is going to be aggressive start. Again, the elevation isn't super crazy over here. But again, sorry, I'm in the wrong area. But again, it's a bit of a hill. It's going to be a hill that you don't want to go over, right? It's right at the beginning and it comes right at the gun, which means you're going to have to be warmed up well before this race. Take the opportunity to do that in between the parking lot and the start, get in your corral, all that good stuff. And at this race, I don't know if I would line up in my corral super ahead of time, just because if I can have the ability to get warmed up a little bit more, warm up, and then immediately hop into my corral, go to the race, that for me, it's just a personal thing, and I can move around a lot faster and be ready right from the gun. If I find that I'm sitting in the corral for 20-30 minutes waiting for my race, I find I get a little bit stiff, I'm kind of uncomfortable, I am physically cold before the race, which weather is probably going to impact this a bit as well. I find that it just takes me a little bit longer to kind of get going. And with a race like this, having this come in the first 0.2, 0.3 miles of the race, this is kind of the perfect storm for you need to be rocking and rolling right before. If any of you are a swimmer, you'll know the best thing you can do is warm up and then immediately get into your race. That's a perfect scenario. Now, the next section over here is this next big hill right up to mile 2, which we'll look over here. That is this hill right through here, and I'll highlight it for everyone just so we can be clear about what I'm talking about here. Section number 2 out on the course here, this is going to be kind of the area that you're going to set yourself up for your first race success. This first one, you're just getting over. It's nothing super fancy, and you just know the effort's got to be there. This second hill right up here, this is going to be the time where you're going to start to kind of ease into your race pace, your natural running form here. And it's probably going to be a little bit harder, right? You're naturally going uphill. And when we look at the specific profile of our course here, you'll see that we have 2.5, maybe even a couple 3%. The fact that this GPS skips over here, which means it just tells me there's a little bit more of an arc. So this is probably a better map right here. There is, if I zoom in right here, you can see there is a bit of a dip in this elevation profile, which means you're going to kick up over here, and you want to just kind of maintain your pace effort through this first section up here. It's going to soften up a bit, which means you need to kind of lean into the hill a bit and keep that same effort that you would have up the initial slope here. So keep that hard drive up and then keep the same pace. You're naturally going to pick up speed here. If you're running with power, your power should slowly start to stay the same, and your pace is going to naturally increase because the elevation is softening on you. You're going to kick up again, and believe it or not, you don't want to totally crush this last section of this hill. You want to maintain for this whole hill. All right, if you can maintain from the beginning to the end, you'll find yourself slowly starting to claw people back. Those early explosioners out on the race course, you're slowly going to start to keep them back and just slowly get them back in your clutches. Okay, after we get to the top of this hill, we're rolling downhill now, and on the downhill, you can see our GPS is a little bit cleaner here, and we have a -2 to 3, and in some places near the bottom, we have a -4%, which means you're going to be moving naturally, so your effort level should naturally drop down a little bit. You should allow gravity kind of take you down the road. If you do that, your heart rate's going to recover. It's going to get an opportunity for you to, if we look at Oh, that's the wrong thing. If we look at our course profile with the water stops on here, we have water available at mile 3, right? So that is right at the bottom here. You should definitely not skip this aid station. Skipping this aid station it's just a recipe for disaster. You want to stay as cool as possible. So if it is a hotter day, you're going to take some of that water, dump it on you. If you are depending on the course for calories and nutrition and things like that, this is going to be an area where you need to get some of that Gatorade to get some calories in you, get some electrolytes in you. I would highly encourage you to run with some additional electrolytes anyways, but that is a personal thing there. Afterwards, we dive into the next big category out on the race. And let's see if we can move this over. Of course, I cannot here. So we're going to zoom out. The next big area is the longest section out on race course. That relies from 3 to 6-ish, 6.5, 6.25. If we look at the official GPS map here, which I have created, totally unofficial, this is mile 6.3-ish out on course. So this section here is a good one. So remember that 523 feet of elevation gain. We have 240 of those feet happening in this 3.3 mile span. So this is going to be the meat and potatoes of the course. This is going to be our first big key to the course here. So leading up to this race, you've heard me talk about maintaining. Now is our first kind of go opportunity, but I say that in quotations. Effort level is going to be high, but it has to for 3.3 miles, right? We're naturally going uphill. We're getting a lot of our elevation here as we climb up to the lake up here. Be very careful with overdoing it. If you're running with power, this is a great opportunity for you to utilize that power successfully and just be a smarter athlete than some of the people who are running with just sheer heart rate or pace projections, right? If you are running with a pace projection, realize that as you are running down the road with pace, you are going to be working a little bit harder here. So you are going to be having to be aware of what's happening. Set yourself up for success for these first 3 miles by running the next 3 miles. All right. If you have totally gone out of the gate and you're flying for those first 3 miles, then during the first major opportunity to claw time back on a ton of people, you're going to simply be kind of holding your ground instead of slowly getting your foot on the gas and slowly rolling down this stretch of road all the way up to the lake. And going back to our map here, we have another water stop that happens right before mile 5 and then another one before mile 6. So again, we talked about this first one being kind of essential. These next two are just as critical. And again, I'm going to talk about the weather again. If it's any hot on this day, these aid stations are going to be crucial for you. Not only from a fueling standpoint, but from a cooling standpoint. And even if it is a little bit warmer out there with a lack of wind, I would still utilize this and pretend it is a hot summer day out there and just keep that body temperature down as long as possible. That's going to be a major key out here. If you can arrive at the top of this section feeling ready to go, feeling cool, feeling like you haven't done a whole lot in terms of just how you feel out there in terms of temperature and weather and all that, you're going to be in a much better spot than most. Most people are going to take this 3-mile stretch and they're absolutely going to crush it, all right? And don't get me wrong, you want to go fast, but you want to be doing it within yourself, within your abilities. If you haven't trained say at a tempo spot for 3 miles, you probably shouldn't run tempo during this section because we have about 6.5 more miles to go here, which is not what you want. All right. Now, the next key to the course as we get to the top of this hill is another long stretch of road out here. And this is the second key to the course, arguably the most impactful area out on the race. And the reason for that, right, we have a lot of up and downs. And if we look at the map here, let's go out again. Their map shows a lot more jagged edges out here, a lot more, okay? Ours doesn't show that. Theirs, this is probably a better picture for you. You could see there's a lot of sharper hills mixed into here, okay? So this is going to be a very on-off section. You're going to see a lot of hamstring cramps. You're going to see a lot of quad issues over here arriving probably towards the later section of this, and that's because a lot of the athletes have totally exploded themselves for the first 6 miles, and on these sharper inclines and declines, they're going to really pay the price for it because your body has to adjust very quickly there, and it's just tough at that point. This stretch of road here, again, I believe it's going to be the most impactful out on race day. You're going to have to be careful. This is also going to be the area where the aid station is with goo and gel. And if we look at 7.5 out on course, that is right at the top of the lake right over here, which again, it's the lake is going to be a little bit lonely out there in some spots. If you're with a big group of people, it's going to feel great. It's going to feel awesome. But just be aware that that lake spot, in my mind, is one of the trouble areas mentally for some people. So that can open up to some issues. So if you are one of those people, make sure you're mentally strong going into the lake. Picture it as one giant lap around the track. It's definitely longer than one lap around the track, but that's how I would envision it and get through it. Find your way of motivating you on how you're going to enter and exit the lake successfully and in a place where after you get out, you're ready to keep attacking for the rest of the race. Find your mantra, stick with it. Okay, now going back to this huge stretch of road here, again, 300 and I forget how much elevation we had last time, but until mile, let's call it 10 here, we have another 150 feet of our 523 feet of elevation gain. I would argue it's probably a little bit more. There's a little bit of GPS smoothing out here, but if we do zoom in a bit more here, you can see that it is pretty jagged up here. It's up and down and up and down. So arriving at this point, ready to rock and roll is going to be super beneficial for you. All right. Um, Again, keep fueling, keep utilizing all of your race day strategies, your nutrition, everything that you've trained with up until this point here. And this is going to be your opportunity to kind of go. If you arrive at mile 6.5, and you are feeling ready, go. Go for it. Don't wait. This is going to be the opportunity where you can put the pressure on a lot of people. And if you're feeling great and another person is just hanging on, right? You're going to have the ability to just kind of keep turning the screws on them until they just, explode down the road. Because of the natural up and down section of this course, your running form is going to have to be critical and crucial for you to master here. So as we zoom in here again, for this stretch of road, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, it is very not flat around the lake. Very not flat. Because of that, your running form can naturally shift, and it is very, very common for athletes to just kind of let it slide right now. You're letting it rip, you're just going, you're crushing the race, and the last thing you're thinking about is what's happening with your running form. If that's you in this section here, you're going to pay for it right about mile 10 later on in the race, and that's the next section that we're going to. So watch all of that. Make sure you're running just like you normally do before you get to mile 10, because after you get to mile 10, you're getting dumped down. I believe it's Maryland Avenue. Yep, Maryland Avenue. You're getting dumped down there, and it is a shot out of a cannon all the way to the finish line. Running form, running form, running form. The last major challenge that you have is this little incline here right at 11.3. We start at 65 feet and we go all the way up to about 105 feet. And it's nothing major. It's one, maybe 1.5 at a place or two that lasts for a couple of seconds. But again, this is the last major hill that you're going to climb. And we do have one last one right at mile 12, 12.1. So just be careful here. You want to have enough left in the tank going down Maryland Ave to be confident that you can still keep that pace up the hill and up this last one before it's happy days to the finish line where you keep continuously getting thrown down the road here. So this last area right here from mile 6.3 to about 10 is kind of your last opportunity to reel in and put distance in between you and others. For the bulk of racers, right? A lot of people, it's going to be very difficult to keep passing people up until that point. If you have someone who's really kind of on the edge, it's going to be a little easier to catch that person during this long stretch over here. And again, this is probably going to be one of your faster miles right in here, but just have enough left to come climbing up over these last two hills, and you will be successful out there on race day. One last thing that I did not talk about is the goos that are out there. This is the chocolate outrage energy flavor. Again, very common for these to have only 100 calories in them, 50 milligrams of sodium, no protein, 21 grams of carbohydrate. And again, I'm not a nutritionist by any means. I'm not a dietitian. I'm just someone that's been around a little bit. So take this with a grain of salt, literally. Something that I always notice with gels like this is the sodium content. If you're strictly relying on this at mile 7.5, you're probably not going to have the best race, and you're opening yourself up to some cramping issues potentially. If this is what you've trained with, kind of ignore what I'm about to talk about. Okay, most athletes need a little bit more than this for a successful race without cramping. Again, if you haven't trained with this, or if this is all you train with and you're totally fine, just keep training with it. All right. If you do need a little bit more, know that there are some things out there. You don't have to strictly rely on this. I would check out the expo. Chances are they're going to have some gels there at some point. And if you do need a little bit extra to tide you over from the start to the finish line, don't just strictly say, hey, I got to get to mile 7, then I'm going to suck down 4 of these things, okay? Plan ahead, space these out, use these with the aid stations. Make sure you're drinking along with these and you're avoiding creating a little stomach bomb in your stomach going down the road, okay? Take this with water and just keep that viscosity in your stomach good, all right? If you want to talk more specifics about nutrition and all that, remember I'm not a nutritionist, dietitian. I'm just someone who's been around for a little bit. And I hope everyone enjoys the race. Again, remember, like, subscribe, share. If you need any coaching advice or any coaching in general, please let me know. And good luck to all our racers at the 2023 Baltimore Half Marathon this year.